We'll take a step back from the intensity and get a little bit more introspective in the latest episode of FX's The Patient. I'm going to give my thoughts and reactions to the latest episode called Kaddish right after the jump. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Two things. One, this episode is the one that is called Kaddish, not the last one. So I know the video started that. I changed the title and all the fonts and everything. But when I edited and had done that video, they had not course corrected the titles that were out. So this one is officially called Kaddish. Second, something that I love about this show is that it is unapologetically Jewish. But that is not my strong suit, as you may be able to tell. That said, I do try to do my research, and I've done a good job. It seems like some people appreciate that, so kudos, thank you. When I don't know something, I try to look it up. Last week's episode was the first time that I was completely confused, and I had no clue. And I thank you all to the folks who were watching these videos, who sort of gave me some knowledge about the concentration camps, specifically the gas chambers and what those sort of look like, and how Alan was having a parallel to what he's going through now as a parallel to what concentration camps and gas chambers were for his ancestors back in the day. And to continue a little bit more of that dissociation that he's having, he is putting himself in those predicaments and kind of feeling that he has there's no hope, or there's no sign of hope for him. So in this latest episode of Kaddish, Alan is a little hopeful. There's a sign of at least a finality, an end coming, one way or the other. When he put the note in Elias's mouth, he basically felt he's put himself in an end game where only two outcomes can happen. And in this episode, he plays them both out. We see a repeated flash forward or imaging of a task force busting through those glass windows. So Alan is just staring at these windows for the entire time with a sign of hope. And we see this task force. He even says to Charlie in his therapy session, this can only go one of two ways. It's either A, they're going to come, the task force is going to come, they're going to find that note, they're going to find the body, they're going to do an autopsy. The autopsy person is going to go in, find the note, pull it out, get the clue, even though it looked damaged, but they're going to get enough of it that they can kind of figure out where to go, and the task force is going to come and save them. That's one option. And when they come in and save him, he's going to get super violent and become Rambo all of a sudden, break open some glass and stab him, and the task force is going to shoot Sam in the face and take out his eyes, and it's going to be really bloody, and it's going to be really happy for him and vindictive. And hope is on the way. Yay. The other option that he keeps seeing is or he's going to find the note. When he tries to turn him over, he's going to find the note, he's going to come back, and he's going to come back and kill me. Those are the only two options. No matter what, there's an end coming to this, and he is hopeful that it is the positive one as opposed to the negative, but either way, it is coming to an end in his brain. I love how there's a moment in this, and mind you, all of this is him talking to himself, but there's a moment in this where Charlie asks Alan, hey, if he comes in and pins you down and stabs you through the throat with the note, what are you going to do? And Alan's response is, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die quickly as I possibly can. It's a fun and interesting line read, and the way that Carell delivers it is fantastic. But it's also a way that David Allen Greer's character Charlie comes back and says, "Well, aren't you going to fight? Are you going to fight?" And at this point, Alan is basically saying the fight is gone. He has no more fight. If this is his last dish effort. If this doesn't work, he doesn't have it in him to continue on to fight anything else. He keeps saying that he's old and feeble, and that's sort of been his excuse to not attack, to not be in the front the entire time. We find out in a throwaway line that he was a former wrestler, but those days are gone, and he feels like everything does not work in the capacity that it needs to get him out of this safely. What is given to us is that we get a little bit more insight of the final straw between Ezra, Beth, and Alan. it's interesting because there's a couple of giveaways that I can't quite place my hand on. But in this, he says that if it doesn't work, I don't know what I'm going to do. Beth's dead. Ezra's in a religious cult, and he said, I'll probably be dead by tomorrow. What I found fascinating is that in that mentioning of the three steps, Beth, Ezra, himself, he didn't mention his daughter. Now we do see a sequence later where his daughter comes up, but he never really points towards her. So I'm wondering if there had been what we learned of the fallout of Ezra in this. I'm wondering if subsequently there's been a falling out with his daughter, probably because of Ezra, because siblings do get close. I'm wondering if something happened that she's not always the first thought. She's always in every flashback that he has. She's there. She's the caring one that stays with mom when she is sick. But he actively not mentioning her first um, seems odd. But in his flashbacks, we see that the ultimate falling out was, and this is something that I did not know. My ignorance, pardon me. I did not. I knew there was a difference between practicing or non-practicing or less quote unquote spiritual Jewish folks and then Orthodox Jews. Did not know it was as big as it is. So Alan, Beth, and his daughter felt that the Orthodox Jew community is a lot more of a cult. And they even say this to him, and then Ezra sort of kicks back to both of them that they don't have a good connection with God, and so there's this huge divide that kind of takes place with them. When he drops off the kids to visit, he takes off without even seeing any of them. He doesn't come into the house; he just drops the kids off, and he takes off. The connection that he had with his mom, where you could see in earlier flashbacks where he was all about his mom, hugging and everything, and clearly she is of the faith, but not in the way that Ezra would like now that he is part of this, and they just don't get along. But we see a situation, this is where it kind of is heartbreaking. You can kind of see why Alan does feel the way, and there's a lot of anger and resentment that he has in him. But when Beth is on her deathbed, she wants to end this. But she wants to end this on her own terms. She's tired of fighting. She's just given up. And as somebody who has been with somebody who has passed from cancer, it is a very tolling thing to have. And she's chosen the best for her. She's like, I can't fight anymore. I'm done. Sort of kind of parallel to what Alan is saying in current days. Like, this effort that I'm putting forth doesn't work. I don't know what I'm going to do. I give up. But in that, Beth is saying that, hey, I want my family around. I want my daughter. I want Alan, and I want Ezra all here. And I'm going to take these pills, and I'm going to get out of here. But I want to see my last moments to be with my family. And in that moment, Ezra tells Alan that it's illegal. And Alan's not upset. Like, Alan said he would be more willing to go with what he's saying if he said, hey, God's not going to appreciate this, or this is going to be a problem with God. He used the term illegal, saying that they're breaking the law to give his wife some sort of peace. And it's a peace that I think both Alan and Sam in this episode are trying to kind of chase, which is why I think they're showing Beth's moment of trying to gain peace and how Ezra was not about that. Ezra took off, didn't want to be around that. And so in that final moment, even though Alan said, hey, you're going to regret this. If you're not here when she passes, you're going to be upset with this. And that's sort of the last time that they all spoke in that moment. She did subsequently pass. Daughter's there. She's in the flashback. And Alan kind of never has that connection because it's something that he's like, I can forgive that, but that's I thought there would be a moment where no matter how far we got apart in that moment, I thought that would be the point where we sort of all come together, and he doesn't. Sam's journey is a little different. Sam does not let on that he's seen the note, and I don't know. It can go either way. If we didn't think he was a sociopath before, this episode 100% lays it all out there. But if he did find the note, he definitely did not let on. But I do think we'll get there. But there's a possibility that he did find the note, but he still wants to keep that therapist until he can find a new therapist. But Sam comes back from trying to dump Elias's body, and he sits down. He's like, I want to have a talk. When he comes in, Alan is staring at the door. I'm staring at the glass pane window because that's just his only way of hope. It's kind of like the kid who's at Christmas who's staring out the door, staring at the. I'm using Christmas for a Jewish show. My apologies, but this is my way. But it's like a kid staring at the window, looking up at the sky to see if Santa comes. Like that hope. Like I want to see it. I need that to continue on through my next phase of my life. But it doesn't. Sam comes home, but he doesn't attack like in the one option that he has. He comes home and he sits. And he sits there and he says, I need to talk. And Alan, for the first time, because probably he does have some like a fighting chance, like a fighter's spirit at this point, he's like, nah, I don't want to do that. I'm tired. It's been a long day. I'm going to bed. And he does. He just curls up on the bed, lays down, and is done. It's the first time that he's actually told Sam no. And in that, Sam seems very confused. He stands up, goes to his room, closes the door, and he is just sort of out of wits. He then spends the next day on a search for some answers, some questions, and because in this, it seems like what he wants to talk to Alan about is like, is there something wrong with me? He goes to a former teacher slash school head, Mr. Bolchel, and kind of asks like, hey, was there something wrong with me? He brings up an incident that happened when he was a kid. Mind you, I can't get clear on whether or not this incident that occurred in school is something that sort of triggered or started the pain that Sam is in. Um, because the teacher, basically an incident happens. The teacher gets reprimanded in the moment and then is fired. And Sam asks Mr. Bolchel, like, hey, did you guys fire him? And he's like, yeah, we did. And did you do that? Did you notice that I was different or weird or anything out of the ordinary? And I was young. And Mr. Bolger was like, I didn't think anything of it. Like you were different, but nothing that kind of flagged as if, hey, we need to be worried or we need to concern ourselves with this. And apparently, Mr. Bolger does have some type of therapy background. And so this is where this gets wild. Sam seems to be in a mode now because Alan didn't give him the love and the respect and the attention that he needed in the moment that he could get it. He's now searching for the next therapist, which while Alan is thinking hope is coming, he's sort of set himself up that now he's replaceable. Sam goes like, hey, would you consider doing therapy for me? And Mr. Welch was like, yeah, I mean, possibly. Let me think about it. Here's my number. Call me in a couple of days and see where my head's at. But then he leaves that. Sam asks like, hey, question. Is it a good idea to live with a therapist? And he's like, no, it is not. And so another feather in the cap of saying, hey, maybe I should sever this ties with Alan back home. Sam continues his road of trying to see who gives a damn about him when he calls Mary, his ex-wife, to see if Mary's like, hey, Mary, did I do anything wrong or is there something wrong with me? And Mary's response is fantastic, especially as an ex-wife. Mary's like, I was married to you and now I'm not. So yes, there's tons of things that I think are wrong with you. Which, yes, of course. But Sam's too much in his head and too far only concerned about himself and has no feelings for anyone else that he wouldn't approach it in that way. But Mary's like, we're not together. So, of course, there's something. If there wasn't anything wrong with you or wrong with us, then we would still be together. And he hears what he wants to hear from that. The biggest thing that I take away from that is Mary says that I don't think you ever loved me. Loved. Like, I think you loved me in the fact, like, hey, I care about, this is my thing. I care about my thing, but you were never in love with me. And you had a weird food fetish. But outside of that, the biggest thing is, like, you never loved me, which is a very sociopathic take. If it does not directly affect or concern him, there's no immediate or outpouring of love or being in love with someone. He's not capable of doing that. And some of that may have triggered from whatever happened in childhood at the school, but I think it still comes back to the father and the mother, which we don't get in this episode. Now that I think about it, she's not here. This first episode, I don't think maybe second, that we don't see her at all. The first time that Sam comes home and Alan is sort of just staring at the glass window, he sort of plays it off by saying that he's trying to recite the Kaddish, but he can't remember the words. That sticks with Sam. Sam is very much a person who's trying to always please. While he doesn't get the love because he can't show the emotion, he always tries to go above and beyond to give everybody else or give the other person everything that they need, so that's his form of that's his love language, if you will. I can't emote love, but I can give you things or put things in place for you that you can sort of be happy. And I think that's how that works. So when he returns home, he has a printer that he is printing, that he purchased, that he plans to print out the Kaddish for Alan, so that he can do his prayer, and maybe he'd say it with them together. He's like, hey, I'd like to say that with you. He's like, no, it's a personal thing. I'm not gonna do that. Um, but in that moment, Alan's like, yeah, that's very kind of you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Because at that very moment, Alan still believes that Sam has done everything that he's supposed to have done, and that help eventually is on the way. So now I just need to be as nice as I possibly can. Don't get him too high, don't get him too low, but keep him even keel so that I can allow time, bide my time. Still hopeful. Boy, does that change. Because as Sam is sort of getting the printer prepped for printing out, Alan just on the whim say, "Hey, what kind of printer do you have?" And he's basically making small talk to make sure that everything that he sort of told Sam to do has been done with the body. And he's like, "Hey, I just wanted to prep you. We should come in. You should come in here and talk. We should have a talk because in the next couple of days, in the next couple of hours, the news is going to start reporting about Elias's body. They're going to find it, and it's going to be hard on you." It's a twofold thing for Alan to sort of one, make sure that he is still okay and that nothing was sort of found out, but two, to make sure that he actually did what he was supposed to do and that help is on the way. That glimmer of hope that he's been holding on to make sure that he still can use that. In that, though, Sam tells him that I didn't do what it is you asked me to do. And he's like, there's not going to be in a report because I didn't do what you wanted me to do. And he goes on to tell him that, hey, as I was driving with the body, I have a pickup truck. There was a truck that was larger than me that pulled up next to me, and I felt like for a moment they looked down into my car and saw what was happening, or saw that there was something in there. And so that if this does hit on the news, then they're going to place that and place me and put it all together. And I didn't want that. I didn't have that. So I put the body where nobody can find it. And the look that occurs on Alan's face is of him being drained of all the hope that he possibly could. That same feeling that he had when Ezra left while Beth was asking for him to stay. All of that kind of comes rushing back. He is just completely devoid of hope because the Calvary's not coming, and as far as he knows, the ending of his life isn't happening. Like, he's still stuck in this cycle, and there's no way really out for him. And it sort of goes back to being in those concentration camps and back into being in those gas chambers as the cycle is going to continue. The episode ends when Sam brings him the Kaddish, and we close out on him actually going through the entire thing. That is where the moment where Sam comes in and says, hey, can I be in here when you say the prayer? He's like, no, this is private. Go away. But then he closes the door, but he listens at the door while Alan recites it and plays us off. It's a sad episode in that the one glimmer of hope that Alan kind of had is now immediately snatched from him. There's a couple of things that are interesting in this episode. One, we finally realize that Sam's a complete sociopath, and I think Alan has done himself a bit of a disservice in not paying attention to Sam all the time, and that now there's another therapist that could be on the board. What's crazy is if that therapist says no, I have a feeling that it's not going to end well for him. But if he says yes, then it's not going to end well for Alan. Here's the craziest thing about this. I know the story that Sam gave about the truck being above him and kind of seeing it. I feel like that note might have come out. I feel like he may have seen that note. And then he was like, nah, nobody's going to find this body. I don't want to kill. I don't want to lose my therapist. I don't want to end this connection, the one connection that I have currently, the one connection that I can actually talk to somebody about. I'm not trying to end that. But I can't also have this body be found. And so I'm going to go home and I'm going to take the one piece of hope that he has away to know that this is what it is. You're my therapist. I'm going to give you gifts. I'm going to shower you. I'm going to give you a printer. I'm going to print the paper for you. I'm going to do everything I can to keep you docile and sort of devoid of hope or fight, but I'm not letting you go. And when I do let you go, or if I let you go, it's only going to be because I'm replacing you with someone else. And that's a fascinating way. Like, I could be wrong, but I just feel like that note was found by Sam, and he just shows, nope, we're aborting. And I think for a moment he probably was going to do what Alan said, and he's like, no, he's trying to trick me. The one person that I care about, or that I thought was on my side, who was trying to help me, is now trying to out. And he's like, nope, I'm going to keep him docile, keep him here, keep him basically neutered, but he's my pet, and it's my thing that I have. I'm not in love with you. I don't care about, but I'm keeping you here until whatever I need from you has completed. And then if you don't complete that, I'll find someone else who can get the job done. 100% a sociopath. um, Great performance. This episode's mostly on Steve Carell. The most of the weight comes on Alan. It's a great breakdown moment of him and what happens with Beth and Ezra. But I'm questioning if something else after Ezra left happened with his daughter, because I feel like she should be coming up more, other than in flashbacks, but should be coming up more as an option to Beth passed. Ezra's not here, but I miss my daughter, or I miss her. I want to have her. He had earlier in the episodes. Then he mentioned her as like, hey, tell her I love her. But there seems to have been something missing in that. I may be grasping at straws a little bit, but I feel like her name should be popping up more in reference to what's happening and to that situation. And I think something may have occurred after Ezra left. Another solid episode, much more introspective. Alan, unfortunately, now is kind of in that no man's land. And I think any options that he sort of had are gone. And now the only one that is just, he's at the mercy of Sam. And Sam either is going to get what he wants from him to try to be whole, which he's never going to ever be whole. Or he's not going to get what he wants from Alan. And now that he knows that Alan's trying to get out of this, in that relationship, so that he can go find another one to kind of fix this. Mary. Best line, Mary. We not married. Duh. Yes, there's something wrong with you. And he clearly didn't want to hear that, so he just hung up the phone. It's fascinating. It's how Sam keeps searching for things to say that he's perfectly fine or he's perfectly normal, and no one can give him that. But what did you guys think about the latest episode of FX's The Patient? This one called Kaddish. We're going to leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any of those places. Podcasts, we're there. This next episode, I may be a little delayed on the actual review because I will be out of town. I'll try to take my stuff with me and I'll try to do it there, but I'll be in Vegas, so this may not take precedent. Celebrating the missus' birthday. But like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.